Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we're going to be talking about the Salamandra and Phoenix deck. The Salamandra and Phoenix deck is kind of a unique deck that revolves around a skill and a structure deck that came out. Unfortunately, it does mean that you're going to need to buy 3 copies of a structure deck, which does involve real money. But some changes have been made to the deck that make it much more powerful, and I do think that it's a deck worth looking at if you're the type who actually likes to spend money on this game. So let's take a look at how you can use these cards and this skill to establish a dominating board and overwhelm your opponent. The skill is called Salamandra and Phoenix. During this duel, you can normal summon or set Immortal Phoenix Gearfried and Phoenix Gearfried without tributing. The following effect can be used once per duel. Reveal Immortal Phoenix Gearfried from your hand, set 1 Salamandra from outside your deck, and send 1 Legendary Sword from outside your deck to the graveyard. You can only use the skill if your main deck contains 10 fire monsters that are warriors. You send the Legendary Sword from the deck to the graveyard. This allows you to special summon Immortal Phoenix Gearfried from your hand, and the Salamandra is fodder for Immortal Phoenix Gearfried's second effect. So this is a skill that gives you a very nice additional summon without much effort. It allows you to start up a chain of recycling monsters from your graveyard, equipping monsters from your deck. It allows you to basically get a leg up on the cycle of this deck, which feeds into itself very nicely when you get into the flow of things, and kind of put your opponent in a situation where they really can't respond to anything. So let's take a look at the main deck. Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, 3,000 attack points, 2,200 defense points, a level 9 fire warrior. You can banish 1 equipped card from your field or graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks, you can equip 1 face-up monster on the field to this card. Maximum of 1 as an equipped spell to give this card 500 attack points. When a monster effect is activated, as a quick effect, you can send 1 face-up equipped card you control to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Each effect of Immortal Phoenix Gearfried is a hard once per turn. So, there are a few things to cover here. Number 1, this is an incredible normal summon. 3,000 attack points, monster negates. The fact that we can normal summon this without tribute is insane, and it makes this card significantly better than it is in the real game. Number 2, the effect to take a monster has several important things I need to describe. Number 1, if you activate the effect, you can equip monsters from either side of the field that are not Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. So another monster that you control, another monster that your opponent controls, even the attack target. However, since you do this at the start of the damage step, if you equip your attack target, your attack will end and you will not get a redirect of battle. But if you equip one of your opponent's other monsters, you gain the 500 attack points, and then you crash, you do some damage, and you will be able to remove 2 monsters with a single attack. So you want to be careful with how you use this effect. But it's a non-targeted removal that doesn't destroy and equips the monster to your side of the field. Not only does that give you an extra negate and more attack points, but it also keeps the monster from hitting the graveyard right now, allowing you to decide when it's going to hit the graveyard so that you could potentially do it during your opponent's, after they've normal summoned, maybe after they've activated a key effect, maybe during their battle phase. You want to make sure that you have full control over when your opponent's monsters are sent to the graveyard, because you can prevent them from using a card like, for example, Orcus Nightmare, by equipping it to your monster and then just keeping it. So this is a really good card. The fact that you can get 2 of them out at the same time, one by normal summoning and one with the skill, is also very threatening. Now we're not running any rank 9s or anything crazy like that, but I do think that having multiple 3,000 bodies on the field that have negates and power will overwhelm your opponents. See also Blue Eyes. So take a look at this deck because it's a lot of fun. Our next monster is called Sublimation Knight. It's a level 3 fire warrior with 1,300 attack points and 200 defense points. If this card is normal or special summon, you can equip a 1 fire warrior monster from your hand or deck to this card as an equipped card that gives this card 500 attack points. So it's got 1,800 attack points. You can use it to grab your Roland or your Squeak Knight and then use those cards in various ways. We'll talk about that, but this is a great normal summon when you don't need the normal summon for your Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, because you can special summon it with the skill, and it's going to really benefit you to play this card and kind of set up a board, and we'll talk about it. For our 3rd Fire Warrior, we have Infernoble Knight Roland. As a quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster you control, equip this card from your hand to that target as an equipped spell that gives that card 500 attack points. During the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add 1 Fire Warrior monster except Infernoble Knight Roland or 1 equipped spell from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. Roland has a lot of interesting applications. Because it equips to a monster as a quick effect, you can do it in response to an attack. You can do it during the damage step because it increases attack points. You can do it in response to a monster being summoned. And it will give you some very needed utility. For example, let's say that your opponent summons a monster, like Live Twin Lila, and you can now activate your Roland from hand to equip your Gearfried. Live Twin Lila's effect to destroy a card on the field doesn't activate until it's already been summoned. So if you know that the monster is coming down, you can equip Roland to it, and then the monster's effect will activate after it's been summoned, and you can then negate it and destroy that monster. And your opponent initially summoned the Live Twin Lila from their graveyard without knowing that you had an equip card to negate the effect. So you kind of surprise them with a monster they've already committed to the board, now not being able to use its effect, or using its effect and wasting our negate, but then losing their monster. So Roland is very dangerous, and the search is really, really good. The last card is Squeak Knight. Squeak Knight is a level 1 Fire Warrior Union monster. If it's equipped, you can special summon it to the field, and then if it's special summoned, you can activate its effect, and it's treated as a tuner this turn, but you can only special summon from the extra deck once for the rest of the turn. So this is a really good card. You equip it with your Sublimation Knight, and then you can get it out, and you can either Synchro Summon or Link Summon with it immediately. So that turns Sublimation Knight into a 1-card Link 2 or a 1-card Synchro 4. Really, really nice effect. Really sets up a strong play for you going first. For our spells and traps, we are playing 3 copies of Book of Moon, 3 copies of Crackdown, 2 Warning Points, and 2 Forbidden Chalices. We are already very good at negating monster effects, and we want to make sure that we double down on that. We want to frustrate our opponents, force them into a state of surrender by using up all of their monster effects without any results at all. The more times that we can negate our opponent's monster effects or remove the monster from the field or turn it face down before it can even activate its effect, the more times our opponent will run out of resources and simply die to the cycle of the Rolands. For the extra deck, we have Herald of the Arclight. This card is the whole reason the deck is really good right now. Level 4 Fairy Synchro monster requires 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuners. Any monster sent from the hand or main deck to the graveyard is banished instead. That's a nice little floodgate. During either player's turn, when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, you can tribute this card, negate the activation, and if you destroy the card. Great. So this is an Omni-Negate, a literal Omni-Negate. It's not a counter trap, but still, you can activate this card in response to any card being activated, negate that card, and destroy it. And you get this from a single normal summon. Sublimation Knight, equip Squeak Knight from deck, Squeak Knight effect, special summon itself, turn it into a tuner, Synchro. And then you still can special summon your Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. So that's your turn 1. Get out the Herald of the Arclight, activate the skill, special summon Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, equip the Salamandra, and then set 2. Now you have very interesting removal that can take your opponent's monster off the field without destroying it, and also get yourself an extra negate. You have a monster negate, you have an Omni-Negate, and then you have 2 back row. So this board is really difficult to break, really frustrating for your opponent, and it will run them out of resources and make them just simply unable to continue playing the game. You are ready for anything with Herald of the Arclight. Oftentimes, what this card will do is force your opponent to use their Book of Moon on Herald of the Arclight, which is fine. You don't need to activate Herald of the Arclight in response. You can just let Herald of the Arclight be set face down. Then you have your Immortal Phoenix Gearfried still waiting for their monsters. So they have to waste their Book of Moon, which they would have used normally on your Immortal Phoenix Gearfried because it can't negate spells, on your Omni-Negate, which is not really a threat and wasn't really benefiting from stats. The Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, if it gets set face down, can be beat over. Not so much the Herald of the Arclight. It was getting beat over either way. So this defangs a lot of Book of Moons, which is very nice because Book of Moon is such a dangerous card right now. In addition to that, we have Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Cerberus, and Nightmare Unicorn. These cards are self-explanatory. It's important to note that the search effect of Roland can be triggered even if the card did not leave the field. So if it was sent to the graveyard through discards, you still get to search. Really nice. We are also playing Link Karibo. This is a Link 1 that requires a level 1 monster, and its effect is when an opponent's monster declares attack, you contribute this card. It changes its monster's attack point to 0 until the end of the turn. So it stops an attack. The way that you use this card is, for example, let's say that you have your Immortal Phoenix Gearfried in your hand, but you don't have Sublimation Knight. Well, you can special summon Immortal Phoenix Gearfried with the skill, then you can normal summon Roland and link it into Link Karibo, and then use Roland to draw your second Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. So that's a good way for you to get the ball rolling on your Rolands and your Gearfrieds, and give yourself an additional interrupt on the field if you don't have the Sublimation Knight. Pentastag we are playing because it's a good way to get Crackdown cards off our field. We want Crackdown to obviously remove our opponent's threats, make sure that they can't activate any monster effects or use their monster as material. But once we have the monster, we don't really need it, so let's link it off into Pentastag and then get some extra damage on the board, deal with defense monsters. It's a good option. And the last card that we are playing is Doolittle Chimera. We are playing Rostalager. It's honestly debatable. Rostalager is like a good boss monster, but it's hard to get a link 4 with this deck without spamming Crackdown. I have it in the deck just because I feel like there will be points where you would summon it at some point, but I really am questioning whether I should just have another Doolittle Chimera in there instead. Your mileage may vary. So Doolittle Chimera requires 2 fire monsters, and it has the effect of all fire monsters in the field gain 500 attack and defense, all water monsters lose 400 attack and defense, and if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target 1 fire monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So the reason why we play this card is because it lets us get back our Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. So let's say you play Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, you use Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, and your opponent gets rid of it. Well, then your Sublimation Knight can pull out a Squeak Knight. Squeak Knight can go with Sublimation Knight into the Doolittle Chimera, and then if your opponent destroys Doolittle Chimera, you get your Immortal Phoenix Gearfried back. So Sublimation Knight being a 1-card link 2 is also very good, especially since both of them are fire monsters, because getting the Immortal Phoenix Gearfried back is your whole game plan. Okay, so now you've heard the turn 1, you've heard the ways that you can use this deck to quash all of your opponent's resources. Let's take a look at the replay. Alright, so we are going second against Black Rose Dragon. Opponent draws, they are going to immediately activate their skill, pitch the level 4 to grab Rox Rose Dragon. Normal summon Rox Rose grab the Basil Rouge Shoot, and Basil Rose Shoot is going to bring back the level 4 Synchro Summon. If you've ever seen Black Rose Dragon, you know what's coming out. It is the Shooting Riser Dragon. Okay. Shooting Riser effect and White Rose effect on Chain Link 2. When White Rose is sent to the graveyard as Synchro material, you can send a plant monster that's level 4 or lower from your deck to the graveyard, and when Shooting Riser is Synchro Summon, you can send a monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then lower Riser Dragon's level based on that monster's level. So the opponent is going to mill World Carrot Weight Champion with the White Rose Dragon, and Magician's Robe with the Shooting Riser. That makes Shooting Riser now level 5. Then they set 3 and pass to us. Okay. So, Shooting Riser Dragon is going to be able to summon either Black Rose Dragon or potentially Neo Trishula Dragon of the Ice Bearer. Those are both enormous threats during our turn. However, both monsters have a win effect as their Synchro Summon trigger effect. So they have to be Synchro Summon as a Chain Link 1. So we have to abuse our opponent's need to Chain Link 1 to make sure that we can negate it. First up, we normal summon Sublimation Knight. Our opponent does not have any monsters on the field, so rather than immediately Synchro Summoning, they have to use this opportunity to activate their Basil Rose Shoot. They will bring back the White Rose Dragon, and then since they activated a spell card, they can special summon the Magician's Robe, but that effect doesn't trigger until after we've already equipped the Squeak Knight. We will activate Squeak Knight's effect, special summon itself from the monster zone, then it immediately triggers its own effect. If it's special summon, you can activate this effect to treat this card as a tuner for the rest of the turn. So even though we special summoned a monster, we did not pass priority to our opponent because we immediately triggered an effect. So our opponent is still not on Chain Link 1. They allow us to continue. We will now Synchro Summon into the Herald of the Arclight. And at this point, I know I've got my opponent. He can't do anything. He's relying on a monster effect, and he's not going to be able to use that monster effect of Synchro Summoning during our turn because we can just negate it. So then I will immediately activate my skill. I'm going to reveal the Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, send the Legendary Sword from outside my deck to the graveyard to set the Salamandra. Banish the Legendary Sword to special summon Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. My opponent is then going to activate Book of Moon, targeting the Herald of the Arclight to try and set it face down. But that allows me to activate Infernal Knight Roland from my hand and go ahead and equip my Immortal Phoenix Gearfried before the chain resets, so that I will have an equip card equipped to Immortal Phoenix Gearfried to negate the Shooting Riser. The opponent activates Shooting Riser. I have an equip card, so I will just activate Immortal Phoenix Gearfried's effect, send the Roland from the field to the graveyard, negate Shooting Riser, and destroy it. Now I activate the Salamandra. My opponent is going to immediately chain Forbidden Lance to try and stop the Salamandra. I guess they thought that they wouldn't get equipped, but it will just stay on the field as a dead card. I set one Crackdown face down, and then I'm going to attack into Magician's Robe, and I will use Gearfried's effect to steal the White Rose Dragon to make sure that its Grave effect doesn't trigger again. Immortal Knight Roland's search effect activates at the end of the turn. I draw another Immortal Phoenix Gearfried and pass to my opponent. At this point, my opponent only has one card in their hand. They know that they can't get around my Monster Negate, and even if they get around my Monster Negate, there's an Omni-Negate waiting for them as soon as I flip summon, so they concede. There you go. That was set 3, summon a monster that would allow them to wipe our field at any point during the turn, and we still played right through it like a knife through butter. This is the power of this deck. This is the power of playing Herald of the Arclight with a single normal summon. My name is Sarafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.